My name is Reed Carter, and 3 weeks ago, I walked out of a house I paid for but never truly belonged in. It's strange how quiet it is now. Not just the physical quiet, the kind that seeps into every corner of this bare, two-room apartment where the walls are thin and the heater makes more noise than it gives warmth, but the quiet in my head. The kind that comes after years of tension snapping all at once. Like a rubber band stretched too far, finally breaking with a clean, stinging snap. She didn't yell first. I didn't, either. It was one of those arguments that starts with a shrug and ends like a thunderclap. We were standing in her mother's living room, of course we were, because Maddie hadn't let go of that place, even after we got married. She called it home, and somehow I was just a long-term guest. You don't even try anymore, she said, folding her arms like a prosecutor waiting for a confession. Try what? Try pretending we're not bailing your family out every month. I replied. That was it. That one sentence did it. Her face flushed, eyes wide, nostrils flaring. Then came the line, sharp, cold, final. Get out and never come back. No hesitation. No warning. Just that. And I did. I didn't beg. I didn't pack a bag. I walked out with my wallet, my car keys, and the shirt on my back. I didn't look back to see if she meant it. I didn't wait to see if Doreen, the queen of quiet judgments, would say anything. She didn't. Of course she didn't. Her lips were pursed like she was watching a trash truck back out of her driveway. So now, here I am. A second-hand couch, a fridge with more takeout boxes than actual food, and a rented space that smells faintly of someone else's dog. And yet, I've never breathed easier. It's the smallest space I've ever lived in, but it feels enormous because it's mine. The phone buzzes again, jittering across the coffee table like it's trying to crawl away from the mess too. It's Maddie's name this time. I don't answer. I watch the screen light up and go dark, over and over. Earlier it was Doreen. Before that, Julian, her cousin who never texted me unless he needed a ride or a check. Now they're acting like I vanished into the night, like I'm some prized asset they misplaced. They don't want me. They want what I gave. And now that it's gone, I've become important again. But I let it ring. Every call, every text, every, hey, can we just talk, gets the same response, silence. For once in my life, I'm not playing the fixer. I'm not the emergency fund with legs. I'm not the emotional punching bag or the silent husband who smiles through insults disguised as family banner. I'm just me. I didn't know what that felt like before. I'd been Reed Carter, the provider. Reed Carter, the pushover. The guy who got lucky marrying into a family that saw him as an accessory, something reliable but ultimately replaceable. They didn't want a partner. They wanted a donor. Now, I eat what I want. I stay up as late as I like. I watch ridiculous movies without hearing a sigh next to me on the couch. No one is critiquing my tie or rolling their eyes when I suggest we skip dinner at a networking party with people who look through me. I didn't expect to feel this light. That's the honest truth. I thought I'd miss her. I thought I'd be aching with regret, wondering if I'd walked out on the love of my life. But I haven't missed her. I've missed myself. The guy I was before I started making excuses for everyone else's behavior. The man who had plans, who wanted to build something real, not just pay the interest on someone else's dream house. I think that guy finally caught up with me. I pick up my phone, not to answer, but to block a number. Doreen's this time. One less name lighting up my screen like a neon warning sign. The quiet after blocking her is instant, like turning down a static-filled radio. And in that silence, something grows. Peace. No more gaslighting. No more guilt-tripping. No more pretending that I'm the crazy one for wanting boundaries. I lean back on the couch, arms folded behind my head, listening to the old radiator rattle like it's telling me secrets. This place isn't perfect. It's not luxury. It doesn't smell like lemon polish or echo with false laughter. But it's honest. And right now, honest feels like heaven. 3 weeks ago, I was thrown out like trash. Now I realize I was finally set free. Let me take you back. Before the shouting, before the silence, before the couch I now call my bed, there was a wedding. Not just any wedding. Maddie wanted timeless elegance, which apparently translated to custom florals flown in from Holland, a dress that cost more than my old car, and a reception that looked like a magazine spread. I remember standing at the altar, adjusting my tie and watching her glide down the aisle like she was the lead actress in a film I didn't know I was extras in. Everyone said I was marrying up. Wow, Reed, you hit the jackpot, they'd whisper, their smiles just a little too tight. Maddie's family had the look, old money aesthetic, pearl necklaces, vintage champagne, and a home that felt like a museum. But behind every glass cabinet and curated gallery wall was a ledger full of debt. Nobody talked about that part. They played rich, but they were living off borrowed time and borrowed money. I didn't come from that world. I grew up in a house where we fixed things ourselves and stretched leftovers for a second meal. I started working at 16 and never stopped. College was paid for with scholarships and weekend jobs, and every rung I climbed in my career was earned one late night at a time. No shortcuts, no safety net, just grit and focus. Still, when I married Maddie, I thought I was lucky. She was stunning, confident, and I believed her charm was real. I believed that smile meant she saw me, not just what I could give. For a while, I let myself live in the illusion. She moved me into her family's house, under the guise of tradition. Her father had left it to her mother, Doreen, and Maddie said it was only right we continue the legacy. What legacy, exactly? A two-story monument to superficial stability, where broken pipes hid behind marble countertops and the mortgage whispered louder than any designer heels could stomp. Guess who paid for the upkeep? The paint, the plumbing, the new roof when a storm came through? Me. Every time. Maddie said I was investing in our future, but it never felt like ours. The paperwork didn't have my name on it. The conversations were always, Mom needs this, Camden's struggling, or it's only for now. It was always for now. I handled the grocery bills even when Doreen hosted her wine nights and her friends loaded up the fridge with artisan cheeses and sparkling waters I couldn't pronounce. I paid for the utilities even though half the lights in that place stayed on all night like it was Buckingham Palace. And the mortgage, God, the mortgage, I handled that like it was my sacred duty. Doreen never thanked me. She just nodded like a queen accepting tribute. They always made me feel like I should be grateful. You're lucky to be part of a family like this, Maddie would say, brushing her hair in front of the vanity I installed, wearing a robe I bought. I used to nod, used to believe it, used to think that maybe I'd finally arrived somewhere better than where I came from. But now that I'm out of it, I see things clearly. They weren't rich. They were rehearsed. They knew how to play wealthy, knew how to make everyone believe they had it together. But if I stopped paying 1 month, the whole show would collapse like a flimsy stage set. And the worst part? I think they knew it too. I think they leaned into my need to be reliable. They saw my work ethic not as something to admire, but something to exploit. Maddie always had 5-star taste. The clothes, the restaurants, the parties where everyone talked about art galleries they'd never been to. Meanwhile, I was grinding through 16-hour workdays just to keep the illusion afloat. I came home exhausted, only to be told I wasn't ambitious enough when I suggested we skip the next charity gala and save for a vacation we actually wanted. You know what really gets me? I didn't complain. I thought that's what love was, carrying more when the other person needed you to. I thought, eventually, they'll see what I've done. They'll appreciate it. They'll meet me halfway. They never did. It was like being the invisible scaffolding holding up a beautiful building. No one notices you until you're gone, and then they're shocked when the walls crack. I remember one night, Maddie said, "You're too serious all the time. You never enjoy what we've built." I looked at her and thought, what we've built? I was the only one building. Everyone else was decorating. Now, sitting here in a place that's barely decorated at all, I feel richer than I did in that house. My bank account might be smaller, but at least now it's mine. I buy things that make sense. I eat food I actually like. And when I walk into my front door, I don't brace myself for another request masquerading as a compliment. Maddie always told me we have to maintain appearances. Well, appearances were all it ever was. It didn't start all at once, you know. That's the thing about slow exploitation. It's like a leaky faucet. One drip doesn't mean much. But if you ignore it long enough, you'll find your floor warped, your pipes rusted, and your foundation quietly rotting. That's how it was with Maddie's family. With Doreen. With Camden. With all of them. At first, it felt like the right thing to do. Doreen lost her husband a few years before Maddie and I met. She'd built her world around him, and when he was gone, so was the backbone of everything. The house, the finances, the sense of structure. She kept the facade up, though pearl earrings, manicured nails, sipping imported tea on her sun-drenched porch. But behind that porcelain smile was chaos. Bills hidden in drawers. Repairs pushed off for months. Empty bank accounts padded with overdraft extensions. And when I came around, I was just the man with a wrench and a wallet. It started small. Doreen needed help with the electric bill just this month. I covered it. Then the boiler broke in the dead of winter. She looked at me like, "You're the man here, right?" So I paid for it. I didn't even hesitate. I told myself, this is family. You step up for family. Then it was the mortgage. Doreen was behind again. Maddie said, it's just until things stabilize. She said that like it was a 2-week cold. But those 2 weeks turned into 4 years. 4 years of auto-pay deductions hitting my account like clockwork while I got emails from Maddie with subject lines like brunch with the girls this Saturday, and found this amazing interior designer on Insta. Camden was next. The family wild card. Maddie's younger brother who always had a scheme but never a job. He just needed a place to crash for a few weeks. I came home one day to find him already unpacked in our guest room, playing video games and drinking one of my craft beers. Maddie gave me that look like, please don't make this awkward. So I didn't. I shut up. I paid for the groceries that now had to feed 3. I fronted Camden's car insurance when he claimed his account was frozen. And then, God help me, I co-signed his loan when he wanted to start fresh with a used Honda. He defaulted 3 months later. Then came Julian, Maddie's cousin. A smooth talker with $1 million smile and a community college dropout's ambition. He was going back to school, he said. Needed a little help with tuition. Maddie handed me the phone with those hopeful eyes. Just for 1 semester, Reed. You'll be changing his life. So I paid. And never heard from Julian again. It wasn't just the money. It was the way they made me feel like denying them meant I wasn't loyal. If I hesitated, even for a second, I got the full guilt trip package. Maddie would say things like, you're really going to say no? After everything they've done for us? What exactly had they done for us? Doreen baked a cake for our wedding. Camden drove Maddie to the salon once. That was the list. Every time I gave, they made it feel like a test. And if I passed, I was accepted. If I resisted, I was cold, selfish, unloving. Family helps family, they'd say. Maddie said it the most. Like it was scripture. Like she was born with a halo and I was some outsider who needed to be taught the way of the gospel. And God help me, I believed her. I believed being generous would win me love. I thought saying yes meant I was loyal, that I was building something. But it wasn't a relationship I was building. It was a dependency. A trap dressed up in familial obligation and designer guilt. You know what I remember most? The way they look at me after I said, yes. It wasn't gratitude. It wasn't love. It was relief. Like a bill had been paid, a burden passed on, a leak plugged for now. And then they'd go back to living like nothing happened, and I'd go back to working harder, longer, stretching myself thinner so I could be the glue they never once appreciated. I thought being needed meant being loved. It didn't. It meant being drained. It meant being convenient. It meant being the hand that fed them all and never once realizing they were just waiting for it to bleed. Now, here I sit in this cheap apartment with peeling paint and bad lighting, and for the first time in years, I haven't handed out a single dollar I didn't choose to. No surprise car bills. No teary-eyed Venmo requests. No emergency checks written while someone else took the credit. It's just me. My rent. My groceries. My silence. And I swear, it feels like wealth. It didn't even start as a real fight. That's the part one keeps circling back to. It was small, almost forgettable. A charge on the card. A birthday dinner Maddie had arranged for one of her friends, complete with a private chef, floral arrangements, and personalized menus with gold foil trim. She didn't ask me. She never did. She just swiped and smiled and assumed I'd take care of it, like always. When I saw the notification, I didn't yell. I just held up my phone and asked, did we really need to spend nearly $1,000 on a dinner that wasn't even ours? She rolled her eyes and waved a hand like I was being dramatic. It was important. It was her 40th. And besides, I didn't have time to plan something cheap. Do you know how hard it is to impress people like her? Impress. That word again. Everything with Maddie came back to appearances, how things looked, how they sounded, how they measured up to her curated version of life. And God forbid I suggest a home-cooked meal or a reservation at a normal restaurant. That would have made us look average. I stood in the middle of the living room, her mother's living room, where we'd ended up once again, under the guise of just stopping by after brunch, and I said, calmly, we can't keep spending like this. We have responsibilities, Maddie. This isn't sustainable. Her jaw clenched. Her posture shifted. That mask of composure she wore so well cracked just a little. You're always criticizing me, she snapped. Always acting like I'm some spoiled brat who doesn't understand money. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. We both knew she didn't understand money. Not really. Not the way I did. Not the way someone who had lived without it, who had earned every dollar from nothing, understood what it meant to budget, to prioritize, to sacrifice. And that silence? That's what set her off. Her voice rose, sharp, full of venom. You don't trust me. You've never been on our level. You've always resented me for having a better life than you. That's when it hit me. She didn't even see me as her equal. After all this time, after everything I'd carried for her family, I was still the outsider. Still the guy who came from less. Still the help. I should have walked away then. But something in me, some buried ember of pride or pain, made me say it. I resent you? No, Maddie. I resent myself for ever believing you were different. That was it. Her eyes went cold. Her voice dropped an octave. Get out, she said. Get out and don't come back. Just like that. 14 words. No emotion. No faltering. Just ice. I looked at her mother, sitting just feet away, arms crossed like she was watching a courtroom drama unfold. Doreen didn't flinch. Didn't speak. She just stared at me like she'd been waiting for this moment since the day Maddie said, I do. I stood there for a second, frozen in the heavy silence that followed. I remember my pulse thudding in my ears. My hand clenched around my keys. I looked at Maddie, at the woman I had once imagined growing old with, and saw nothing. No regret. No sadness. No love. Just a glare. Like I was a roach in her pristine white kitchen. I thought I'd say something. A last word. A final line. But there was nothing left to say. So I left. No shouting. No slamming doors. No begging. I didn't ask if she meant it. I didn't ask for a suitcase or a ride. I just walked out the front door with the clothes on my back and the weight of 6 years lifting off my shoulders. As I walked to the car, I half expected her to chase after me, to call my name, to say she didn't mean it. But the door stayed shut. That was the moment it all crystallized for me. Not during the argument, not during the dinner debate, but right there in the quiet after the storm, when I realized how easily I could be erased from their lives. Because I wasn't a person to them. I was a function, a wallet, a stand-in father. A walking solution to every problem they refused to fix themselves. And once I questioned the system, once I stopped smiling through the strain, I became disposable. I started the car, drove to nowhere in particular, and didn't even cry. That surprised me. I thought I would. But all I felt was stillness. A strange, bitter relief. That night, I found a cheap hotel, paid in cash, and lay awake staring at the ceiling. And I told myself, this isn't the end of something beautiful. It's the beginning of something honest. I didn't text her. I didn't call. I didn't write some long message begging for understanding or closure. I left, and then I stayed gone. That same night, after Maddie told me to get out, I found a furnished one-bedroom on the east side. Craigslist listing. Ugly tile floors, a chipped coffee table, and a mattress that looked like it had survived a frat house. I took it anyway. Signed the lease before I even changed out of the shirt I'd worn to brunch. It was midnight when I lay on that lumpy bed, staring at the water stain on the ceiling like it held all the answers. And that's when it hit me. For the first time in 6 years, every dollar in my bank account was mine. No overdue cousin payments. No wine club subscriptions. No $400 hair appointments I didn't know I was sponsoring. Just me, my paycheck, and a silence so thick it was almost holy. The first morning I woke up there, I made coffee in a battered Mr. Coffee machine someone had left behind. It sputtered and wheezed, but it worked. I drank it black. No oat milk, no lavender syrup, no powdered collagen. Just bitter and hot and mine. I sat on the tiny balcony with a wobbly railing, watching the city wake up without me in it, and I smiled. It was a weird smile. One of those half-broken, half-liberated kinds. Because I wasn't okay, not really. I was bruised. Exhausted. But for the first time in forever, I wasn't performing. I wasn't pretending to be lucky, just because I'd married into a family that could afford to dress their dysfunction in silk. Then came the text. 3 days after I left, Maddie sent it. Just one line. I hope you're enjoying your little break. No apology. No, I miss you. Just that smug, passive-aggressive dig wrapped in condescension. I stared at it for a full minute. Thought about responding. Thought about telling her what it was really like. How I'd slept better on a creaky mattress in a one-bedroom than I ever had in that museum of a house. How the silence here wasn't awkward, it was peaceful. How I could finally exhale without wondering who I'd be bailing out tomorrow. But I didn't text her back. Not then. Not later. I deleted the message and put my phone face down on the table. And I definitely didn't send the mortgage payment. That was the first time in 4 years that I didn't wire money into an account I had no name on. I didn't warn her. I didn't remind her. I just stopped. Cold turkey. 3 weeks passed. In that time, I relearned how to be human. I cooked pasta for myself, not some fancy risotto with truffle oil, just basic spaghetti. I started reading again. I went for long walks without a single Bluetooth call from Maddie's mother buzzing in my ear. And then Doreen messaged me. Of course it was her. It always was when things got inconvenient. She didn't call. God forbid she show that much vulnerability. No, she sent a perfectly punctuated, emotionless text. Hi Reed. The bank says the mortgage hasn't been paid this month. Can you please take care of it before they report us? Just like that. No, how are you? No, we miss you. Just a direct, business-like request. Like I was still on payroll. I stared at that text and laughed. Actually laughed out loud, startling the guy upstairs who always stomped around in heavy boots like he was training for a tap competition. I imagined her sitting there in that kitchen I remodeled, sipping her imported tea, clutching her pearls, real or fake, who knew? And thinking, surely he'll pay. He always does. But I didn't. Instead, I tapped out the simplest reply I could muster. Oh, I thought I wasn't part of the family anymore. Sent. Delivered. Read. Then, for good measure, I added, you said never come back. I'm just following instructions. And then I turned off my phone. The silence that followed was the best silence I'd ever known. I made myself dinner, grilled cheese and soup, the comfort meal of someone who's choosing peace over performance, and watched some dumb sci-fi movie where the world ends but the guy still gets the girl. I laughed. Alone. Happy. Uninterrupted. Because for the first time, I wasn't a safety net. I wasn't a blank check. I wasn't the guy they called when the fantasy ran out of funding. I was free. And when the buzz started again the next morning, voicemails, texts, even emails from Maddie's best friend saying, "This isn't you, Reed." I ignored it all. They didn't miss me. They missed my compliance. It started like any other Tuesday. I was halfway through microwaving leftover lo mein when my phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. Just one ping. Short. Soft. The kind that barely registers anymore. I didn't rush over. These days, I don't jump for anyone. But when I eventually picked it up and saw Doreen's name again, I paused. She was persistent, I'll give her that. 10 texts deep and still trying. Still acting like we were tethered by something other than a string of unreciprocated favors. I opened the message. Hi Reed. The bank says the mortgage hasn't been paid this month. Can you please take care of it before they report us? That was it. No greeting. No sentiment. No attempt to even pretend like she was talking to someone she once called family. Just a cold, direct line like I was a customer service rep late on a task. I reread it, lo mein in hand, and something in me cracked, not like a branch snapping, more like a pressure valve hissing after being sealed for years. This wasn't just audacity. This was Olympic-level entitlement. She wasn't asking me to come home. She wasn't worried about Maddie or asking how I was holding up. No. She wanted me to fix it. Again. Like I was a glitch repairman for their broken fantasy. I could see her in my head, sitting at that overpriced marble kitchen island, perfectly composed, texting me with one hand while sipping espresso with the other. I imagined her thinking, he'll cave. He always does. And the worst part? That used to be true. Not this time. I didn't even have to think about my reply. Oh, I thought I wasn't part of the family anymore. I hit send before I could overthink it. The words felt good, right? Then, almost like a reflex, I typed again. You said never come back. I'm just following instructions. Send. I stared at the screen, watched the read receipt appear, and then locked my phone. Turned it off completely. I wasn't in the mood for the tsunami I knew was coming. I went back to my couch, picked up my fork, and finished my cold noodles in peace. That night, I slept better than I had in weeks. No guilt. No second-guessing. Just deep, solid rest. The kind where your body stops bracing for impact. By morning, my voicemail was overflowing. I didn't even need to listen to know who they were from. Doreen. Camden. Probably Maddie, too. And sure enough, when I scrolled, there she was. 2 missed calls. 1 message. I didn't play it right away. I made coffee. Opened a window. Let the city air sweep through my small apartment like a cleansing ritual. Then I sat down, took a deep breath, and hit play. Her voice was shaky. Not broken. Just agitated. Reed. This isn't funny. You're being immature. This affects more than just you. It affects all of us. All of us. As if I was still in the equation. As if my departure was some clerical error and not the result of her throwing me out like last season's wardrobe. I deleted the message before it even finished. I didn't need the rest. I knew the rhythm by heart, deflection, blame, veiled threats wrapped in pleas. I'd heard it too many times, in too many tones. The family's greatest talent was rewriting history while it was still happening. Later, I checked my email. A message from Camden, full of clumsy phrases like, "You know how mom gets," and "let's just squash this," as if this was some brotherly spat over a borrowed video game. I didn't respond. Instead, I opened my banking app and smiled. For once, no large auto drafts. No mystery charges labeled gift deposit or event fund. Just my rent, my utilities, my life. I sat back, legs crossed on the coffee table, and asked myself something I'd never dared to ask before. What if this is what real freedom looks like? What if the version of Reed that lived in that big house, that showed up to every family crisis with a checkbook and a plastered-on smile, what if he was the imposter? And this guy? This quiet, unbothered man with instant noodles and a clear conscience? What if he's the real me? It wasn't a comfortable thought. Growth rarely is. But it was true. That day, I did something simple. Something ridiculous. I walked to a corner bookstore and bought a paperback. A mystery novel with a crumpled spine and a $2 sticker. I took it home, made tea, and read for hours. I didn't check my phone once. No one had ever taught me that peace didn't have to be expensive. That you could build a life without a high-rise view or a luxury kitchen. That sometimes the richest thing you could own was your no. Maddie's family still hadn't learned that. But I had. And from now on, I wouldn't let a single message take it from me again. I woke up the next morning to a voicemail box that had officially given up. 42 unheard messages. My phone had become a buzzing monument to everything I'd walked away from, desperation disguised as guilt, obligation dressed up like concern. I scrolled through the list. Maddie, Doreen, Camden, even Rhea, Maddie's best friend, the one who once told me I was such a saint for putting up with them. I didn't listen to most of the messages. I didn't need to. I already knew the script. This isn't just a fight. This affects everyone. You're better than this, Reed. That line, "This is bigger than a fight," got stuck in my head. It was Rhea who said it in a long, rambling voicemail I played on speaker while brushing my teeth. She was trying to be diplomatic, but it came off as rehearsed, like someone had fed her the lines. She kept saying things like, "I know you're hurting, but don't let this ruin everything you've built with Maddie." Then, the clincher, "You don't understand what's happening. It's deeper than just money." Deeper than money? That one phrase stuck in my chest like a splinter. Because for me, it had always been about money. The endless withdrawals from my time, my peace, my bank account. If there was something deeper going on, it was buried under layers of entitlement I'd never been invited to dig through. That day, something in me snapped into place, not in anger, but in curiosity. I decided to call the bank. I didn't want to talk to Maddie. I didn't want to yell or accuse or argue. I just wanted information. Cold, hard, clean truth. So I dialed the customer service line tied to the mortgage account. I'd been auto-paying it for years, but I'd never questioned where the money actually went. All I knew was that it cleared every month, and the house didn't foreclose. That was the extent of my involvement until now. The woman on the line was polite, efficient, too chipper for the weight of the question I was about to ask. "Hi," I said, trying to sound casual. "I'm calling to check on the mortgage account for 1227 Farridge Lane. I was helping pay it, and I just want to confirm the payment history." She put me on a brief hold, fingers clicking across keys. When she came back, her voice was a little more neutral. "Sir, the last full mortgage payment recorded was approximately 9 months ago." I blinked. That can't be right. I've been sending money monthly. She cleared her throat. "There have been deposits, yes. But they haven't been applied directly to the mortgage. Partial payments were rejected. Nothing posted to the principal since last year." I was stunned. 9 months. 9. That meant every payment I'd made for nearly a year hadn't gone toward the house. I'd assumed, stupidly, blindly, that Maddie or Doreen had managed it. That my contributions were being combined with theirs to keep the place afloat. But no, they'd been pocketing it. That tight, sharp silence wrapped around me again. The kind that comes when a truth is so loud it drowns out every other thought. I ended the call, stared at my phone for a full minute, and then laughed. It wasn't a bitter laugh. Not exactly. It was the kind of laugh that starts low and quiet and builds because there's nothing else to do with the absurdity. I had been funding their lifestyle. The fake stability. The rich girl Instagram posts and the spa days and the spontaneous girl's trips to Palm Springs. I wasn't a husband. I wasn't even a partner. I was an income stream. And when I'd finally turned off the tap, They panicked, not because they missed me, but because the water was gone and the bills were still due. I looked around my apartment. Cheap furniture. Second-hand bookshelf. A half-full coffee mug with a chipped rim. And still, for the first time, I felt wealthier than I ever had in that massive house. They hadn't even used the money for survival. Not food. Not repairs. Not the mortgage. No, they'd used it for comfort. For luxuries. For aesthetics. I was the fool who thought I was helping. Who thought my generosity was building love. But it wasn't love they felt. It was relief. That they could continue playing rich without adjusting the script. I sat down, phone still in my hand, and thought about the next step. Should I call Maddie? Ask her why? Press her for the truth? No. I already had the truth. She didn't value the sacrifice. She didn't protect the gift. She spent it like it was owed. And now, the bills were coming due. I called Camden first. I don't know why. Maybe because he was the least composed of all of them. The weakest link. He cracked under pressure faster than the rest. And if I was going to get any truth without spin, it was going to come from him. He picked up on the first ring, like he'd been waiting for it, like my name on his screen had been a prayer finally answered. "Reed," he said quickly. "Man, I'm glad you called." I didn't waste time. I talked to the bank. Silence. I know the mortgage hasn't been paid in 9 months. More silence. I could hear the wheels turning in his head, the frantic scramble to find an angle that didn't make him sound like a leech. "You don't get it, man," he finally said. They needed help. Doreen was in a tight spot. Maddie was stressed, and we didn't think you did. "You didn't think I'd what?" I snapped, my voice suddenly louder than I meant. "You didn't think I'd notice? That I wouldn't figure out I've been funneling money into a black hole while you all took vacations and played pretend?" "It wasn't like that," he muttered. "It was complicated." I let out a dry laugh. "Camden, I sent help. Every month. Where did it go?" Another pause. And then, finally, the smallest whisper. "I don't know." Of course he didn't. I ended the call without another word. I didn't need to hear him justify theft with sibling loyalty or family pressure. I already knew the truth. They saw me as a tool. And when a tool stops working the way they want, they toss it aside. A few minutes later, Maddie called. I stared at the screen for a long moment. Then I answered. Her voice was tight, the words sharp like she'd been practicing them in the mirror. "You're being petty," she said. "You're letting us drown over a grudge?" I leaned back into the couch, eyes on the ceiling. "It's not a grudge, Maddie. It's a revelation." "Oh, don't start," she snapped. "You know how things have been lately. We've all been under stress. You walking away didn't help anything. You told me to leave. You know I didn't mean it." "That's not how it works," I said, my voice calm but flat. "You don't get to throw someone out and then call them back in when the power bill's due." She was quiet. I could hear her breathing on the other end. Then, her tone shifted, less fire, more frost. "This is your family, Reed." And that was the moment I realized something deep in my bones. "No," I said softly. "It's your family." And they kicked me out. I heard her gasp, sharp like a slap. Then a click. Call ended. I didn't move. I sat there, letting the weight of it settle. That call had been coming for weeks. I had rehearsed it in my head a dozen different ways. Some versions ended with yelling, others with crying. But this one, this quiet, clear ending felt right. She didn't deny it. That was the most telling part. She didn't say the money had gone to the mortgage. She didn't say they hadn't lied. She didn't even say she loved me. All she did was demand I return to my role, to the function I used to serve. Not as a husband, not as a partner, but as a provider. A patch. A walking, talking solution. And I was done with it. After the call, I went for a walk. The city felt different now. Lighter. Like the streets didn't hold memories of her anymore. I passed a couple holding hands and didn't ache. I passed a woman laughing into her phone and didn't imagine Maddie's voice. I just walked. Free. Unattached. Unburdened. Later that night, Camden sent one more text. "You didn't have to go nuclear, man." I stared at it for a while before replying. I didn't go nuclear. I went quiet. And that's what scares you. Because silence, when you've lived your whole life making noise, feels like destruction. But to me, it was peace. It was power. It was the sound of finally choosing myself. They could spin it however they wanted, call me bitter, selfish, heartless. But I wasn't the one who drained someone dry and then demanded more. I just stopped giving. And in their world, that was the ultimate betrayal. The next message came through while I was folding laundry. My phone buzzed, lighting up the dingy apartment like it had something urgent to say. I glanced at the screen. Doreen. Again. I didn't want to open it. I already knew what it would be. But curiosity is a stubborn itch. You'll regret this. If we lose the house. I didn't read the rest. I didn't need to. I stood there, holding a t-shirt in my hands, staring at that half-lit screen, and something inside me just closed. Like a door that finally latched after hanging loose for years. That text wasn't a cry for help. It wasn't a request. It was a threat. A final swing from a woman who still didn't understand that her reign was over. I replied without hesitation, "You lost me first. The house is your second loss." Then I blocked her. That should have been the end of it. But the real final act? That came a few hours later. Maddie called. I didn't answer the first time, or the second. But the third time, I hesitated. Something told me it wasn't going to be another cold demand. I couldn't explain it. There was just something different in the rhythm of the call. I hit accept and brought the phone to my ear without a word. Her voice came through, thick with emotion. And for the first time since this all began, she wasn't yelling. She was crying. "Reed," she said, soft and raw. "Please, don't hang up. Just listen." I didn't say anything. I let her talk. "I didn't mean it," she whispered. "That day, I was angry. I was scared. Everything was falling apart, and I took it out on you. I said things I didn't mean." I closed my eyes, let the words wash over me, felt the tremble behind them. And for a split second, my heart pulled in a way I hadn't felt in weeks. Because once, I did love her. Fiercely. I had envisioned a life with her. A future. A family. But then she kept talking. "We can fix this," she said, her voice breaking. "We can go to counseling. We can talk it out. You don't have to leave us like this." And just like that, the tug in my chest unraveled. There it was. Us. We. Like I hadn't already been alone the whole time. I sat down on the edge of my bed, staring at the blank wall across from me, and asked the one question that had been sitting on my tongue like a hot coal. "Do you love me?" I said. "Or do you just miss the bills I paid?" There was silence on the line. Not shocked silence. Not offended silence. Just stillness. And that told me everything I needed to know. "You always said you wanted a strong man," I continued. "Someone who could provide. Someone who could protect. But what you really meant was someone who could carry you. Someone who wouldn't complain while you spent, while you blamed, while your family drained me dry." "Reed, that's not fair." "Fair," I said, and now my voice had an edge. "I paid for a house I didn't own, for people who didn't respect me, in a family I never really belonged to. And when I asked questions, when I dared to say no, I got kicked out like trash." Another pause. Then she spoke again, quieter this time. "I was scared." "So was I said. But I didn't throw anyone away. I let the silence stretch this time, long and thick and final." "You want to fix it?" I asked. "Then sell the house. Get a job. Pay your own bills. And the next time you throw someone out of your life, mean it." She sniffled. I could hear her trying to hold it together, probably sitting in that fancy kitchen I helped maintain, surrounded by the ruins of a fake empire. "I didn't think you'd ever really leave," she whispered. That made me pause. And maybe, just maybe, that was the truth. Maybe none of them thought I would actually go. Maybe they thought I was so locked into their lives, so eager to please, so desperate to be accepted, that I'd keep showing up, checkbook in hand, no matter how much it cost me. But I did leave, and I wasn't coming back. I ended the call without another word. No goodbyes. No promises. Just done. Afterward, I sat in the dark for a long time, watching headlights flicker across the wall through the slats of my blinds. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just breathed. And that breath felt like the first honest thing I'd done in years. It's been a month. For weeks since Maddie told me to get out. 28 days since I did exactly what she asked, without protest, without tears, without turning it into a dramatic scene. I left like a man walking out of a job he never applied for, quietly, finally, and without looking back. And in that time, the world didn't end. Their world might have cracked, though. I've heard things, not directly, of course. They'd never admit it to me. But mutual friends talk. The kind who keep one foot in both camps and text you at 1 a.m. with things like, "I probably shouldn't tell you this, but..." Apparently, the house is in pre-foreclosure. The same house I paid for all those years. The one they decorated for Christmas and hosted parties in and called ours only when it suited them. Funny thing about a house like that, it looks stable until the scaffolding underneath is removed. And I was the scaffolding. Doreen's blaming Maddie. Maddie's blaming me. Camden's conveniently gone silent. No one is taking accountability. They're just tossing blame like hot coals, trying not to get burned. But me? I wake up in a cheap apartment where nothing matches, and for the first time in years, I don't start my day in debt to someone else's expectations. I make breakfast in a pan that wobbles on the burner. It's not gourmet. It's not Instagram-worthy. But it tastes like freedom. I eat slowly. I'm not rushing to pick up dry cleaning or stop by the florist for a surprise Doreen asked me to get. I'm not being sent across town because someone's cousin's car broke down and they thought of me first. I go to work. I focus. I come home. I breathe. Sometimes I walk by the river with a cheap cup of gas station coffee and no destination. I sit on the benches and watch the joggers pass and wonder how long it's been since I felt this light, this unburdened. I don't check my phone as often anymore. They've stopped calling. I think they finally got the message, not the one I sent by text, but the message I've been sending in silence, in action, in boundaries that can't be bulldozed by tears or threats but were family speeches. I'm not angry. Not anymore. That's the strange part. I thought I would be. I thought the bitterness would keep me warm at night. But anger burns fast. It flares, it exhausts, and then it fades. What's left is peace, quiet, soft, unfamiliar peace. The kind that lets you sleep without dreaming of confrontation. I still replay it sometimes, though. That moment in the living room. Her voice. Her face. Get out and don't come back. I don't replay it because I miss her. I replay it because I almost didn't listen. I almost fought to stay. Almost begged. Almost tried to explain myself. But I didn't. And in that one decision, I saved myself. There's this idea people push, that love means staying no matter what. That it means weathering storms and sacrificing and forgiving endlessly. But that's not love. That's martyrdom dressed in wedding vows. Real love has limits. Real love doesn't ask you to abandon yourself just to stay. I stayed too long. Gave too much. Lost myself piece by piece in the name of being a good man. But now, in this space, with its peeling walls and humming fridge and secondhand lamp, I found more of myself than I ever did in that mansion of obligation. And I ask myself sometimes, was I too harsh? Should I have paid that last mortgage bill just once more? But then I remembered Doreen's text, Maddie's voice, Camden's excuses, and I know the answer. No, because if I had paid it, they would have taken it as permission to start the cycle all over again. My silence wouldn't have been a boundary, it would have been a pause. A delay before the next extraction. I gave them everything I had. And when they told me to leave, they never imagined I'd take everything I gave with me. I don't owe them another cent. Not of my money. Not of my time. Not of my peace. I still get the occasional message, someone fishing for a reaction. A cousin who just wants to check in. A friend of Maddie's asking if I'll come to a mutual birthday party. I ignore them all. Not because I'm bitter, but because I'm done. Some debts are paid with dollars. Others are paid with silence. And when someone throws you out of their life like garbage, don't go back offering flowers. Let them sit with the emptiness they created. Let the silence be your final payment.